For my score analysis presentation, I decided to analyze and transpose the hymn "When Morning Gilds the Sky." I started by identifying the key signatures before and after transposing the score. Because there were no sharps or flats listed in the original score, its key was C major, which has a relative minor of A minor and contains the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. For my project, I was instructed to transpose this into B flat major, which has a relative minor of G minor and contains the notes B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, and A. So I made sure to include the B flat and E flat in the key signature of my transposed piece. After that, I began the process of transposing, which I went about in two different ways. For the first half of the score, I went through the original piece and listed the scale degree number next to each of the notes. So C's got a 1, D's got a 2, E's got a 3, and so on. Next, I began to fill in the corresponding type and pitch of note on my new grand staff. So any C's in the original score, which is the tonic of the C major scale, would become a B flat, and so on for the rest of the scale degrees. For the second half of the score, I transposed using an interval of transposition. Because the interval between a C and a B flat is a descending major second, I was able to transpose the rest of the notes down 2 half steps without having to look at its corresponding scale degree. To finish my transposition, I identified the time signature of the original score and added it to my transposed score. This was 4/4, which means there were 4 beats per measure, and a quarter note gets the beat. You can see that in action in the first measure because there are 4 quarter notes, and that perfectly fills up the measure. Before I move on, I'm going to play a segment of "When Morning Gilds the Sky," being performed in the key of B flat. If you listen closely, you can hear each of the 4 voices singing their own distinct melodies. In addition to transposing the score, I also did a Roman numeral analysis on it, as well as on "This Is My Father's World" in E flat major, and "When I Survey the Wondrous Cross" in F major. These analyses involved first identifying each note in the triads found throughout the score, and then identifying which triad it was and which inversion. I'll walk you through a couple of examples. For the first triad in "When Morning Gilds the Sky," it contains the notes C, G, C again, and E. Since you identify a triad based on its lowest note, C, E, and G, this would be a C triad. Since it's the first triad of the scale, which is a tonic, it would get the Roman numeral of 1. And additionally, it would be capitalized because the first, fourth, and fifth triads are major in a major scale. To find its inversion, we look at which note is placed lowest on the score, which is a C, which makes it in root position, or the 5/3 inversion. Moving on to the first triad in the third measure, it contains the notes C, E, E again, and then A, and which makes an A triad. This is the submediant of the C major scale, which means that it would then get the Roman numeral of 6, and it would be lowercase because the second, third, and sixth triads in a major scale would be minor triads. Looking back at the score, the note C is lowest, and the C is the third of an A triad, which makes this in first inversion, or 6/3. Another part of the score analysis was identifying several intervals. I found, circled, and labeled 6 intervals in "When Morning Gilds the Sky: a perfect 4th, perfect 5th, minor 3rd, minor 6th, major 2nd, and a perfect 8th, which is also called an octave. After all this information, you might be wondering why you should care about music and music theory at all. Well, here are 2 reasons why music is important and worth your time and effort for studying it. First, music helps link the arts to math. Nearly all of the arts include aspects of math to some extent. For example, painters employ ratios, writers divide their works into sections, and architects used scaled models. But in music, however, math is found in almost every element. From the simple counting of beats to the frequencies of sound itself, music is full of numbers, patterns, and even physics. Some philosophers would go so far as to argue that numbers and math don't actually exist in and of themselves, but are only found as qualities of the particulars we can experience, things like music. Music's intrinsic connection to math helps make it more definite and straightforward, easier to understand, and simple to manipulate. Second, music is a way to worship. If you've ever been to a church service, you probably encountered a distinct period of worshiping God through music, and may have also heard music in the background of the sermon. Because music evokes such powerful emotions and can simultaneously share stories or personal experiences, it is an extremely valuable tool in our relationship with God. To conclude my presentation, I will leave you with this quote from Plato. Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything.